Hi again. So everyone is well fed and caffeinated and ready to go, right? Because this afternoon is going to be interactive. Before I dive into Get Out the Vote, which I'm so excited to share some things with you, I just want to really quickly head back to the census because we had such a great conversation about that this morning, and I wanted to just add a little bit of national context. So the National League is an official partner of the U.S. Census. We have met with U.S. Census representatives multiple times as a staff team to quiz them on a number of the questions that you yourselves were asking this morning from your state demographer. So specifically around some of the issues of concerns about cybersecurity, concerns about folks with the digital divide, how we might protect against threats to potentially mess with the confidentiality of data, and many of the things that you were asking about. So we have sort of a three-phase campaign that many of you may have seen in the bi-weekly league update email or through other communications from us. Right now is sort of a general education sort of effort, so getting people ready for the fact that the census is coming. Then of course, starting in the new year, it'll be a full-fledged get out the count process, which many of you, it sounds like you're already hooked into those local complete count committees. Hundreds of leagues around the country are doing just that. So participating through those official channels to encourage everyone to respond to their census form. And then the third phase will be action as needed. So if there were to be a concern or a threat, the league would absolutely, at a national level, be looking at litigation or other advocacy to stop anything bad from happening or weigh in if there was a concern of any sort. So on the cybersecurity question, I'll tell you, we had a conference call with one of the main technical leaders from Census Bureau, and in addition to all the things that you heard from the speaker this morning that they're doing to ensure cybersecurity in particular, they also told us that they'll be operating I believe 24-hour sort of war room during the key kind of response period to be making sure that they're on top of any threats, and that involves multiple government agencies providing the security kind of factor here. So just to further address that a little bit. So now I'm going to pivot and talk about Get Out the Vote a little bit. Who's doing Get Out the Vote in your local leagues? Okay. I'm hoping that by the end of today we'll have some more hands raised. It's great that you are doing what you're doing. So by Get Out the Vote, what I'm here to talk about is direct voter contact, is what we call it. So all the things that the league does to get out the vote are amazing. You all contribute to Vote 411. Who's contributing to Vote 411 this year through your local league, through the state league? Great. Through the media appearances that you do, through being present at community festivals, to wearing your vote button when you go out during election time. All the things that we do to encourage Get Out the Vote are important and part of course, the DNA of who we are as an organization. What we need to do more of, frankly, is what we call direct voter contact, which is actually communicating directly with voters, whether it's somebody that we helped register at a high school or a new citizenship ceremony, which I know many of you are doing lots of that in your communities, or through gaining access to voter file data, which is publicly available, and actually contacting voters and encouraging them to turn out and equipping them with the information that they need to do that. This is something that, of course, many organizations and political campaigns and candidates do. We all get phone calls and mailers and have people knocking on our door, depending on the state we live in, around big elections, and that's because these methods work. Organizations wouldn't invest the millions and millions of dollars that they do in getting out the vote and calling us on the phone and knocking on our doors if it wasn't effective. So this is research-based work that we want to be equipping ourselves as an organization to do some more of, because we know it's so important. So we also know it's especially important among the kinds of voters that we are trying to reach and the kind of electorate growth that we as an organization are trying to see. We're not just trying to turn out people like us who are going to vote in every local election, no matter how big or small, right? We all need to turn out and vote, and that's important. But we want to really be encouraging turnout among those lower propensity groups, among young and first-time voters who are, much more likely to need some helpful, succinct, basic information about how to go about voting, especially if they've moved from another state where voting looked very different from how it looks here. And you all have a great voting system, and several of you have pulled me aside to make sure I know that, and I do know that. But it looks different than it may have looked if they came from another state. And I know you have lots of new people coming to your state, as we just heard from your Speaker of the House earlier. We know that young and first-time voters are also, in many states, the most likely targets of voter suppression, whether those be explicit or implicit efforts to discourage them from voting or to outright make it much, much harder for them to vote. So this all feeds into our overall sort of work as an organization to be bringing more people in and making sure people have free and fair access to their vote. So, as I sort of said, the research tells us that it works. So direct voter contact, especially in a year like this one, where, as we heard before, these tend to be lower turnout elections in an off year. A little bit of a bump in turnout can make a huge difference in the impact of an election, clearly. Get out the vote efforts have been shown to increase turnout by double digits in some of the case studies. We know it's a key opportunity where the way that voting works is changing. So in a state like yours, where you have things like moving to all mail-in ballots, or to the many states where we're moving to automatic voter registration, or other reforms where we're finally seeing voting sort of improve and change, our attention needs to shift a little bit away from maybe traditional paper-based voter registration to more of this get-out-the-vote work. So it's a key opportunity to keep doing what we're doing, but do it in a way that's a little more effective and a little more nimble. It helps us leverage our investments. So who is show of hands again, who's putting time into building that Vote for One voter guide, or someone in your league is? Who is moderating or hosting candidate forums and debates? A lot of us, right? Who's compiling old-fashioned paper voter guides that you're going to put out in your community, right? So you all are investing your time and your frustration sometimes, and your energy and your money and your volunteers' time into doing all of those things. We at the national level are also investing and spending lots and lots of time on all those things. By doing direct voter contact and getting our good leak information into the hands of voters who really need it and who the research tells us really needs it, we can leverage those investments and make sure it's worth it. Our time and effort and money spent on Vote 411 only matters if millions of people go to Vote 411. And more so, those millions of voters who we know really need that good information. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, no one sees our great voter guide, was it worth all that time? So this is a key way that we can, in a sort of resource-efficient way, get that information directly to people that we know will benefit from it. And frankly, the sky's the limit on this kind of thing. We could contact every single voter in America if we had enough money to do that. We could have the contact information for every voter in America and send them 3 postcards next year ahead of the presidential election, if I had enough money to do that, right? I don't, but we do have money to start doing it, so that's kind of what I'm here to talk about. And we're starting it with some pilot efforts with you all, coming up with this November. So as I said, the methods that the research consistently show really work are traditional door knocking, to get out the vote specifically, which most leagues are not doing a lot of, to be honest, and probably we're not gonna at this point be doing a lot of that, but just to show you what is really shown to be effective kind of time and time again. Door knocking, live phone calls or phone banks. Has anyone done phone banking of voters? Great. So phone banks continue to show to be effective, and then mailers continue to show to be quite effective. So these are kind of some of the things. There's a lot of talk about, of course, texting these days. Who's experimenting with texting? Any voters that you're registering? Okay, a couple people, that's great. This might change. So far, the research has shown that sort of cold texting, so texting folks that you don't have a prior relationship with, is not seen to be a kind of big turnout bump. What we call warm texting, which is texting people that we do have a relationship with. So someone that you've registered to vote at a community event and asked them for their phone number and started to build a relationship with, does see a better effect there. But these three tend to be sort of the really effective ones, and it's where we want to try to focus and figure out what really works best for us as an organization. And that looks different from place to place. Just to show you a little bit about how we are investing in this, we are sending 225,000 postcards to primarily young voters in 3 states this year, for the general election: New Jersey, Virginia, and Colorado. So about 75,000 postcards are going to be going out in Colorado before the election to a universe of voters. And I've been working with Ms. Jerry in the back of the room to identify how we're going to do that. Thank you. And thank you for saying yes. This is new and different, and we need to try some things. We were lucky enough to have a major financial investment at the national level to be able to do this, and we hope, of course, to continue to be able to grow this and expand it to more states, starting with the primaries next year. In New Jersey, around their June primary, we did both a large postcard mailing and experimented with some live phone banks run by league volunteers. And I have some results of that effort in a minute. In the fall, in the coming weeks, the New Jersey League will be doing phone banks again, and they want to experiment with a little door-to-door canvassing. So we're going to learn a lot from that and see what we can sort of share with other leagues as to what seems to work well and what to think about if you want to do something like that in your league. We incorporate Get Out the Vote into every grant program that we do. So a few of you I know participate in some of our voter registration grants. Is it the state league, Jerry, that has the New Citizen grant? Yes. So through some of our pass-through grant programs that we have at the national office, several of which you all have participated in, if you're doing a voter registration program using LWVEF money, we require at least some Get Out the Vote effort. Again, because we know it's effective and important. So leagues do this in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's as simple as starting with a sign-up sheet on your table to at least be getting contact information. Some leagues have a lot more capacity and ability, and they're actually creating databases of the publicly available voter contact information, and then following up through mailers, through phone calls, through texting, through some of these methods. So we continue to require this through grant-funded programs, again, with a lot of flexibility depending on what's feasible for your league. And there are some rules about some of these things depending on the state. Again, because we know it's so important. So we will continue to include this as an important component of pass-through grant programs that you all may be applying for through us. And we'll be announcing new rounds of those grants, by the way, before the end of this calendar year, in that bi-weekly league update. Who reads your league update email that you get from us? Okay, we're giving out money. And we also just put out a new practices guide, a best practices guide on some of these methods, including scripts and drop and go, templates that you can use. That was in the last league update. We'll be continuing to promote that. I'm more than happy to share a link with Jean, if I haven't already, so that we can get that out to folks if you're interested. Who's seen the new Vote 411? Okay, well I hope everyone goes and checks it out. I brought a bunch of stickers. There's some up at the front table and there's some over on this back table. Again, we've invested so many resources at every level of the organization into making Vote 411 our premier voter education product and tool that this organization has across the country. And so we want to, again, continue to develop programs to get that in the hands of people who need it. So to tell you a little bit about the New Jersey case study that I talked about, and some of the initial results that we have from that. In the New Jersey primary, it was only a just state legislative primary in June, statewide. We targeted registered voters under 45. These are very low turnout primary elections, so we did a bit of a wider net than we would in, let's say, a presidential election, where it would be much more targeted. We, in this case, picked people who had at least voted in an off-year election at some point in the recent past, which again, we wouldn't necessarily do under another set of circumstances. And we, together with the state, we picked 3 districts that at least had contested elections, because many of them in the primary did not even have contested elections, of course. So what we did so basically what the league has done on a state-by-state basis, or some state leagues already have access to this through partnerships that they have, we have bought into voter file databases, essentially, to pull the publicly available contact information for registered voters to send them these get out the vote reminders. So what we're able to do through systems like that is also pull a control group of similar kinds of voters in those same districts who demographically look exactly like the voters we are contacting, and then after the election, compare the 2 groups and say, did people who heard from the league prior to an election turn out at a higher rate than people who didn't? Because we want to be able to measure what we're doing here. So here's what we found. I hope you can see this. So the statewide turnout was very, very low, 7%. But that was, I think, almost 2 percentage points higher than it had been in the 2017 legislative elections in New Jersey, which is actually a huge deal. So to go from 5 to 7 is actually a big success, if you'll call it that. This is 2019. So this is the June 2019 state legislative primary. Okay. So statewide turnout, 7.7%. The statewide turnout of the demographic group we were talking about and targeting was 6.3%. So we were targeting underrepresented communities, so we would expect their average turnout rate to already be lower, right, than sort of the population writ large. Turnout for the voters who received one method of contact from the league, so in this case, a postcard, the turnout was 6.9%. So already significantly higher when you're talking about numbers like these than kind of that average demographic group. And then turnout for people who received 2 contacts from the league, so they received both a postcard and a phone call or a message from a league volunteer reminding them to vote on Tuesday, was 7.3%. So you see, these look like small numbers, but it's actually a really big deal. 1% percentage point change here in turnout in such a low turnout election could be enough to, affect an entire outcome, depending on what you're doing. Not that we're trying to affect the outcome, we're intentionally not pulling by party affiliation in keeping with the league's nonpartisanship here. But you can see this really does work and make a difference. There are many, many more examples of this kind of work. This is just what we experienced. This is very non-scientific. This is me looking at the back end at some of the numbers of how this worked. But it did confirm and reinforce what we thought would happen, right? Which is that investing in this makes a difference. And we should keep it up. We should keep trying some things. Keep figuring out what we're good at when it comes to this area of work, where we could really do lots and lots of things if league volunteers are interested and if we have kind of the budget to continue to grow it. So this is an example of the postcard. As I said, we're going to do 75,000 postcards in Colorado, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. This is an example. We worked out some specific language with Jerry and the team, given that you're primarily mail-in drop-off state. So that's a little different than in other states. That will go out next month. Oh, I need to update my slide. So originally we thought we were doing 50,000, we're now doing 75,000. The postcards directly promote Vote 411. And I have some of the more generic examples of the postcard also on the tables, and you're more than welcome to take some home if you'd like, you can use them if you want them. And they're available for download from the league website for leagues who want to print these out and do not customized per state, but in the more generic way. So the postcards are going to directly drive voters to your great information on Vote 411 that you all have worked so hard to have. Here in Colorado, thank you. Here in Colorado, we're targeting voters under the age of 35 in a series of locations that we chose based on sort of general, we really want to get some more league visibility in these areas. We want to, it tends to be a younger demographic, so voting at lower rates than the average kind of population. So here in Denver, Boulder, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, Greeley, and Grand Junction. So, and I know also kind of with an eye toward, that's where a lot of large student populations are in your state. So all the costs and logistics related to this are being covered by us at the national league level. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to do the same thing. So we've pulled a control group of voters who look very similar to the ones who are going to get a postcard from us, so that after the election and after your turnout data becomes available, which takes a while, these things take a while, the turnout data takes a while to come back to us, but we will be able to look and see what was the impact here in Colorado and the other 2 states where we're doing a general election push this year. I'm going to just wrap up and then do questions, okay? Because I'm almost done. So we're able to do this great pilot with your state league, but there's things that we can all be doing, and some of you are already doing these things. So again, we can make the most of our investments that we're already making, time, money, otherwise, by thinking about how can we get our good information into the hands of voters who need it. And that means direct, as opposed to passive, get out the vote efforts. So I realize, nice to think that if we wear a vote button everywhere we go, that people will vote because it's the right thing to do and because we believe it's the right thing to do. But that person directly being asked or hearing from us and being encouraged to vote and being given some good basic information, here's when election day is. Here's when you need to have your ballot returned by. Here's who's on the ballot this year. Those are the questions that voters have and the ones that we need to directly answer. And this is a little bit new for us, I understand. But again, the research continues to show how important it is that we move in this direction. You can all be contacting the folks that you're out registering. Again, it can be as simple as putting a sign-up sheet or something called a pledge card on your voter registration tables. I'm going to show you that, and I think you may also be sharing a sample pledge card out. And you can be checking that league update for help and ideas, and you can always contact me too to talk through what might work or what is working for other leagues. We're also going to be talking a lot about this at convention in June for anyone who's coming to that. So this is an example of a pledge card. You've probably seen your league might be using this or other organizations. So sometimes folks will just have these little slips of paper that they give to new voters as they're registering them. That just basically is a way to capture their contact information and get them to opt into hearing from you. So this is just an example for you. And this is in that toolkit that I mentioned that we just came out with. National Voter Registration Day. I know that 9 leagues in Colorado are signed up. Raise your hand if your league is signed up for National Voter Registration Day. Great. So NVRD is on Tuesday. This is the 8th year. The league was a founding organization of National Voter Registration Day, which is a big, huge, at this point, enormous coalition effort to kind of have a single nationwide day celebrating voter registration. I'm really excited that so many leagues here in the state are participating. Our goal is to have 400 leagues around the country out there registering voters on Tuesday and promoting it online and talking about the importance of voter registration. So thank you for everyone who's doing that. You'll be asked to report back if you've signed up as a partner from the headquarter folks. Please do. We are able to claim that the league has been the single largest organization on the ground on National Voter Registration Day for the last 7 years running. And the only way we're able to continue to claim that is if you all report back and say what you did. So I want to be able to continue cleaning that because we get a ton of visibility and money some years that we then pass through to leagues around the country to the extent we can. And so we can only continue to do that and get the credit for our huge effort if we all report back about what we did. So please do that. I'm going backwards, I'm sorry. There we go. So I know we're going to move into a little bit more of an interactive session in a second, but just wanted to answer any immediate questions that you all have about the postcard effort or anything else that I talked about.
I have a big voice. How did you select Colorado as one of the three?
How did we select Colorado as one of the three? You said yes. Which not everybody has. This is new. I would love if when I pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to pay for this thing, and I want to promote the league to 75,000 voters in your state that otherwise you wouldn't get to, I would love for everyone to say yes. But as you know, change is a little hard for some of us, and it's not always an easy yes, but in this case it was. So thank you for saying yes. Thank you for agreeing to kind of experiment with us a little bit on this. And you have elections, and you're generally kind of an important target state on a number of our other programs and so forth. So that's the short answer.
What's a good overall online address for this program?
The question is, what's a good online address for this program? Are you talking about a website to send voters to?
No, the link that you are of your program that you're just.
Oh, we'll get the toolkit, which I think is the best thing, that kind of summarizes and gives real practical steps for this. We'll make sure that you get that after today's session. So I'll make sure Jean has the link to send out if Jean is agreeable to that. Sure. She says sure. Or I can give you my business card, and you can email me and I'll send it to you on Monday.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Okay. Yeah, right here. Oh, I'm sorry, right here.
Okay, sorry, then I bring the mic over there. You mentioned 762 successful phone calls or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I find it personally very difficult to answer the phone if it doesn't tell me who it is. And even when people I know call me, oftentimes it's not them. So I'm surprised that people answer the phone.
So, yeah, where did I
What
have?
is a successful call?
I had that number
message.
somewhere. It was so, anyway, I lost the number, but one more. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong column. Okay, so yeah. So what we used in this case, what's called a predictive dialer, which if you've done phone banking, you may have used before, where the system does the work for you and calls through numbers and only connects the volunteer to a person if they actually answer. Or it also picks up voicemails in some cases. So in this case, the 700 number is both live, someone picked up the phone, which I agree is a more rare thing these days, or we were able to successfully leave a message. So as the volunteer is going through, they get prompted to say on the computer kind of what happened once they connected. So I was able to leave a message, I was able to talk to the voter, etc. We also had the outgoing phone number set up as the League of Women Voters of New Jersey in this case. So people knew. And we piloted some of these back in 2016 in Ohio as well. And we actually found that those leagues, the Ohio League, got a ton of calls back from voters. So voters saw they had a message or a missed call and actually were calling the state office to ask questions. So how often do you call back from a cold call you get? So anyway, just, people know our name out there, and so.
Question.
Sure.
Aren't they able to leave a message when you call? Because my phone says scam. Every time a phone comes in and doesn't recognize it, it usually says scam. And so I don't call back. But why can't you call and then leave a message? Say, hey, I'm from the League of Women Voters.
So that didn't, so in this case, the predictive dialer does sometimes.
I don't know who, but I didn't answer, but I'm getting a bunch now. I mean, I must have two dozen last week, two dozen, all of us.
So I can't, different phone carriers and all that handle these things differently, and different systems that people use. But in general, the predictive dialer technology that our technical partner uses connects either to a live person picking up and in some cases to a voicemail. And I don't know the technical background on how it
Well,
decides.
he is getting to the voicemail and leaving a message saying, call me back. I'm calling from Goodwood with all this. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, so I'm told that was the last, I'm sorry. Also asked. I'll repeat your question.
I have a suggestion, it's not a question. In looking at the people you're targeting, the age group, a lot of people believe when they came into Colorado Springs, they signed up to get a license and they registered. I think it's incumbent on us to let them know that if you've moved since you registered, the ballot is sent to where you are, not to where you were. And if it goes back to the county is not spending the money to vote. And I think that's so important because they threw away thousands of ballots the last election.
That's a really important point. So yeah, so the point is that if you've moved, you need to update your registration, or in this case, your ballot is going to go to your last address on record. That is a huge piece for us to be doing. I couldn't agree more. So, thank you. Okay.